The high-speed thrills and spills of Formula One may be the ultimate adrenaline rush for fans, but for drivers, the extreme forces generated by cutting-edge aerodynamics can be a bone-jarring experience. Last year, the FIA introduced a technical directive to address the dangerous phenomenon known as porpoising. But now it seems that the directive has been quietly removed from the rulebook. What happened, and what does this mean for the safety of F1 drivers hurtling around the track at breakneck speeds? Let's dive into the details. Porpoising made a comeback in Formula One as it resulted from using ground effect aerodynamics to create a car's downforce. The previous generation of Formula One cars used over-air flow for this purpose, while last year's cars used the floor as the source of the downforce. Venturi ducts in the floors of the cars changed the airflow underneath, creating a low-pressure area that increased the airspeed, resulting in more downforce and a faster car. The faster the car, the more downforce it then created. However, porpoising occurred when the suction pulled the car so close to the ground that the underfloor aero stalled. When that happened, the car raised away from the ground, and as it got higher, the aero kicked back in, pulling the car towards the ground. As the action and reaction continued, the car went up and down in a porpoising motion. Like a dolphin or porpoise moving through the water, up and down along the length of their body, so too did the Formula One cars. But unlike the dolphins, it was not pleasant to watch and even worse to experience. The problem was first discovered back in the late 1970s when Colin Chapman was the first team boss to trial ground effect aerodynamics with his Lotus F1 cars. Winning the world title with Mario Andretti in the Lotus 79, more teams swapped to using the pull, not push, effect for downforce. However, it was banned in 1982, as Formula One chiefs feared it was too dangerous as it made the cars unstable and extremely difficult to drive. Last year, in a bid to make simpler cars with fewer bits and bobs and more standardized wing pieces, Formula One returned to ground effect aerodynamics, as it is also known for creating a cleaner wake off the cars, making it easier for those behind to follow. While that seemed to have done the trick, the teams, most notably and vocally Mercedes, found the bouncing to be a bit too much. As Toto Wolff put it earlier this season, Mercedes was specialists in bouncing, so much so they could divide it into porpoising or bouncing or bottoming. You're enjoying this video, right? You definitely don't want to miss out on other amazing videos, so all you have to do is hit the subscription button. It's that easy. Thanks for doing that. Let's move on. Earlier last season, it was clear already that porpoising had an impact on the cars. Lance Stroll revealing that Aston Martin had broken several flaws, where Mick Schumacher said a leak just 2 laps into a practice session was the result of bouncing. But while the physical impact on the cars was visible, the impact on the driver's body was hidden, with the cars hitting the ground hard, not helped by stiffer suspensions being in a play that season. That impact travelled through the driver's body. George Russell was the first to complain, not surprising given that Mercedes suffered from extreme bouncing, revealing after Imola that his neck and back were sore. His teammate Lewis Hamilton added his voice after Baku. The 7-time world champion helped from his car before he walked away clutching at his back. With Mercedes the most vocal in their concerns, Red Bull team boss Christian Horner said if his RB18 bounced like Mercedes did, he'd also tell his drivers to bitch as loud as possible in order to put pressure on the rule makers to make changes. However, the Mercedes drivers weren't alone in their comments. Carlos Sainz said after Miami that he had done checks on my back and neck tightness, and that year it was tighter everywhere. I was already feeling it. While Pierre Gasly voiced his fears that he would need a cane at 30 years old if this continued. And not to minimize back and neck pain, there is another issue at hand, and that is microconcussions. If the body is bouncing, so too is the brain. Hamilton was asked about this. He said he had definitely been having a lot more headaches in the past couple of months, but I've not seen a specialist about it, so I've not taken it too seriously. I've just taken painkillers. So hopefully I didn't have any concussions. To counter this, the FIA brought out the TD39. The technical directive was issued on June 17th, following a particularly excruciating Azerbaijan Grand Prix due to the bumpy track surface. But it did not come into effect until the Belgian GP after the summer break. Flexi floors were also outlawed. TD39 was basically an aerodynamic oscillation metric. The goal? To limit the number of vertical oscillations a car can undergo so as not to risk drivers' health. A maximum number was set, and breaching it consistently could lead to penalties. To improve driver safety, the FIA changed the floor rules for 2023 in a bid to limit porpoising. Now the teams cannot run their cars as low, The floors will be 15mm higher on the side edge than the reference plane, and the diffuser groove will be 10mm higher. Mercedes-powered teams had proposed a 25mm change to the floor's lateral edge, but a compromise was reached at 15mm. This was also because most teams had the phenomenon under control by then. Now, too, it seems not to be that big of a problem. The floor rules seem to have successfully tackled porpoising bouncing, even though they may have had some unintended effects. And so, according to the Italian arm of motorsport.com, the TD39 has been removed, as it appears to have been made redundant by the floor changes. The Italian publication understands that the technical directive was scrapped at the start of the season itself, and in fact, it had already been relaxed at the Singapore Grand Prix. This was apparently done because large swings in vertical oscillations could be generated, not by porpoising as such, but because of the rough track surface. It is, after all, a street circuit. So the TD was relaxed to prevent cars from breaching the normal limits. This doesn't mean the issue has completely disappeared, of course. The Ferrari SF23 has been seen bouncing. That is certainly worrying for the team, especially considering their disappointing pace. Last year, there were also reports that the organisation felt that the technical directive had a large part to play in their performance, falling drastically in the second half of the season. That is, after the introduction of the TD39, they also ran the engine lower because of reliability fears. But the F175 becoming a tyre eater coincided with the arrival of the TD39. It could no longer keep up with Red Bull, and often even Mercedes in race pace. According to AMUS, though they publicly denied it, Ferrari were finding it hard to dismiss the connection between TD39 and their tyre wear issues. There have also recently been reports that the new floor rules have regressed the car's ability to follow each other, so it'll be interesting to see how this develops. In a statement, the FIA has emphasised that they communicated their decision to scrap the technical directive with the teams, Formula One and Pirelli, in a timely manner. They also stressed that the AOM remains in place, and we are still gathering data from this metric, but as the matter seems under control, it was stated that we will not be applying a limit in the forthcoming period. Continuing, the FIA revealed that the Formula One grid has now been warned that if the parameter worsened again, we would introduce it at very short notice. Since everything is already in place, we could restart implementation relatively quickly. The FIA's statement continued. Furthermore, the FIA revealed that it plans to make all technical directives past and present public very soon. Continuing in this vein, they explained to do so, we need to eliminate any confidential info and private info. This is currently under development, so you can expect something in the next few months. This will improve the level of access and understanding of technical rules for media and fans in the future. TD39 was always seen as a stopgap measure, a temporary solution until the new cars arrived, so it's natural that it may no longer be applied. However, the technical changes related to the plank and height from the ground remain intact. AlphaTauri technical director Jody Eggington clarified that porpoising is still a concern and something to be aware of, even though the Italian-based team hasn't experienced the phenomenon since the start of the season. He said, I'm sure it's lurking one way or another to some extent or another. The regulation changes that have been made certainly shouldn't worsen it. You have to keep an eye on it as part of your development strategy and not put yourself into a corner where you lose a big chunk of performance to eradicate it. He said the floor changes were made for the right reasons and we supported them. Had we not made the changes, it would have been a little more difficult and we would have been fighting the same challenges. It's all for the greater good, I think. What's your thought about this new move from the FIA? Was it the right decision? Let me know in the comments section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video.